Hey friends, how's it going? So let's see. Over this last week, I wrote up a very detailed account of the attacks on transgender people from this past year, from the federal government and the conservative movement in general, which focuses on the hypersexualization of trans people and framing us as predators of children. You can read the article attached here for all the exquisite detail, but I wanted to be very detailed in there for posterity, but I'll just summarize the main points in the video, I think, while also describing how all of this feels. So, a month or so ago, a friend asked for links to people talking about how transgender people are feeling right now and what we're experiencing. At the time, I was working full time and juggling all my projects, as I always am, so I didn't have time to address that, but I think I'd like to start doing that. I think it's important. Um, yeah, right now my time is my own as I'm not working full time. It's pretty incredible. I have time, I've made time for creative projects. Um, and it's still sinking in, really, but I've been making some good movements on several projects lately, including a paid mural project, which is a dream. Um, Working on creating an inclusive community center as usual, organizing our next Zine Fest in Merced. And I think what I've got is the last rounds of revisions for Next Level Ally, my book that should come out this year. Wow. Um, yeah, but back to the topic. um, Last week there was yet more news about trans oppression, of course. So last week the Supreme Court saw arguments on two cases where states have banned or are trying to ban trans girls from participating in sports. I watched the PBS NewsHour as I usually do most days. I am still a fan. Um, but sadly, but not surprisingly, there were still no adult trans voices represented or commenting. They had two sound bites from the young people in the lawsuits, at least one of which was from several years ago. The rest of the commentators did not talk about trans identity at all, especially not how it feels being a trans person. I think I may have seen one trans identified commentator on PBS in 2025. I think one. I can't tell you who that was or what the story was about. It didn't register, but I just want to give that to PBS. I think I've seen one in a year. But that's, I mean, functionally zero if you think about all the different commentators and everybody who talks on PBS day after day, hour after hour. Um, there is no trans representation functionally in our mainstream media, really. Where are the trans commentators? I'm curious. I'm ready, by the way, just to let you know. I am totally ready to go on PBS and talk about all of these things. I mean, it really is historic, this persecution that we're facing from our own government. To be clear, I still watch PBS NewsHour most nights, and I was very sad to see PBS News Weekend get cut recently. I really am, and it's because I'm a fan. I don't want PBS or NPR to go away. As a friend pointed out to me, I just want them to do better. Um, but speaking of doing better, there really aren't major news outlets representing trans voices right now. Um, I didn't watch Democracy Now! Much in 2025. They may be doing much better on the topic, I'm not sure. I've spent time watching Democracy Now! In the past, and it has its place, and I love it, and it's a great show, but just for daily consumption, the hour straight of injustice is a lot, and I need to. I like having it broken up with other news stories or even good news stories. Um, and it just gets to be a lot. So I do watch PBS usually. But anyways, back to the topic of major media outlets. I don't know if you caught last week, or maybe it was 2 weeks ago now. A former New York Times editor came out to whistleblow about transphobia at the top levels of management at the New York Times. So that would explain the lack of trans voices in print as well. This comes after the 2023 open letter, where hundreds of Times contributors accused the paper of actively burying trans voices and covering trans news in a negative and questioning light. Look it up if you missed that one. So these are very real voices that are involved with the New York Times coming out and penned an open letter. on the subject. So this isn't just speculation from readers and fans and people from around the world. These are people actively involved. Um, how does this all feel? Well, for that, I have to add in the recent press conference from our Federal Health and Human Services Department. If you didn't catch that, that is fully on YouTube, the full hour and some, where they explicitly make the case that trans people are predators, that trans treatments are irreversible and damaging, which just isn't true. Uh, so many lies. You just have to watch the thing. But like I said, I did codify some of them in the article, so you can read the article that's attached to this video for more on that. But just take a second to imagine. Think about your federal government holding a press conference regarding the most recent medical treatment, procedure, or surgery that you had, and calling you a disgusting predator for considering it. So take a moment, think about that, and you'll start to maybe think about how it feels right now. In the Health and Human Services video, my government called me mentally ill, a mistake, a whim. You can see the disgust on their faces. It's very plain. If you want to know how it feels to be trans in America right now, watch this entire video. It is on YouTube, the Department of Health and Human Services. Um, Meanwhile, it's giving that press conference in particular, I think, gave the Meta hate bots more fodder for hate. Uh, they still routinely tell me to kill myself. The most recent one said, "Just become a statistic already." I'm not sure if we know how many people or organizations are behind this automated hateful content that we're all um, drowning in. If we go to Meta, maybe 10 or 20 years from now, we'll get the frontline report on it. I'm waiting. But we are definitely living out a hateful, destructive science fiction plot right now in real time. We just are. How does it feel? It feels like there isn't anyone who I can trust or rely on to protect me. Um, it certainly is not government funded institutions. It isn't doctors. It isn't my local politicians. Um, yeah. It feels like all those people are just out to exploit us for the capital that we can earn and the services we provide, right? Some of us are withdrawing further. Some of us are finding stronger real life community connections, which is cool, and pivoting towards analog pastimes like crafting and gaming and records, which of course I support, and that's very cool. Um, for me, being called disgusting is nothing new. As a queer person, I've been called that by organized religion my whole life. Really, if you pay attention, that's what they're telling us, and what I've been told my whole life. This is a familiar feeling. My federal government calling me a predator of children is somewhat new, but the same feeling. I already know that I'm hated, and some will always find me and my life disgusting, unnatural, and unholy. I've seen for years the attacks that hypersexualize us and focus on my genitals and the surgery that I chose to have them, which I personally think is my protected health information and no one's business, but that's just me. Um, I personally also feel powerful in this moment, though, personally. The fact that I have a good financial situation right now as a registered nurse gives me a position of security. Um, and I also know that these naked and hateful attacks are just that. I know that trans people, like any other class of people, belong here and have a right to participate in society on the same playing field as everyone else. And I feel fearless and emboldened to call what's happening what it is. It's an attack on a class of people, plain and simple, as Ketanji Brown Jackson tried to point out last week. And we're all watching the politicians and the news commentators and everyone. We're just watching and remembering who is seeing this as the civil rights issue that it is. Um, this is widespread discrimination and hate against a class of people. Um, and it is not. So that's what it is. It's a civil rights issue, And the politicians who aren't seeing it that way and who are dismissing it as a cultural moment that will just kind of go away, that doesn't matter to them or their constituents, we are watching. And it's not just us, but our allies are watching and people are watching. People are watching for how you act on this issue. Is it a civil rights issue, or are you treating it as a civil rights issue, or aren't you? We are watching.